This is Tuju Fuyuki. She's the design team leader and basically the queen of the office, rocking that flashy Gyaru style. Some random guy from acoustics tries to invite her to a drinking party, but she shuts him down before he can even finish his sentence. People around the office are whispering that she's actually married, which seems impossible to most of them. The truth is, she's married to this guy, Taiyu. He's an engineer at the same company and tries his best to stay invisible. Taiyu is just trying to get through his mountain of work when a teammate stops by to bug him about a fix. Suddenly, Fuyuki leans right over his shoulder and whispers a sweet good morning that only he can hear. Taiyu nearly jumps out of his skin, worried someone might have caught her using his nickname in the middle of the office. They have to be super careful since the company has a strict rule against office romance. They actually had to get a secret okay from the president just to keep their jobs after they got married. Back at her desk, Fuyuki is back to her cold boss persona, but she's secretly checking up on her husband. She notices his schedule is absolutely packed, and the poor guy looks like he's drowning in tasks. She marches over and puts on a show, acting like a boss from another department just to tell him to take a break. She walks off with her head held high, leaving everyone else thinking she's just being her usual strict self. The sun goes down, but Taiyu is still stuck at his desk grinding away at his code. Fuyuki waits until everyone is gone before sneaking up to give him a proper hug. She encourages him to finish up soon and tells him she'll handle dinner tonight. Deep down, she's feeling a bit lonely because they haven't really had any quality time lately. She hits up the supermarket after work, determined to be the perfect wife and cook a great meal. She gets home and ties on her apron, ready to tackle the kitchen with some recipes she found online. But being a pro designer doesn't mean she's a pro chef, and she ends up burning the food while she's distracted. To top it off, she accidentally shrank her favorite knit dress in the dryer and is having a minor breakdown. Taiyu finally gets home and immediately realizes something went horribly wrong in the kitchen. He sees how stressed she is and suggests they just go out for a nice dinner tomorrow instead. Fuyuki is so touched that she just tackles him with a hug, her dinner disaster forgotten. She's still feeling a bit embarrassed about her domestic failures and tries to hide her face behind her shirt. They are both totally wiped out, so they decide to just hit the hay early. The alarm blares at 6:30 the next morning, but neither of them wants to leave the warmth of the bed. Fuyuki rolls over and gives him a sleepy, gorgeous smile that definitely makes it harder for him to leave. She pulls him back under the covers, claiming they need to snuggle up to stay warm. Eventually, she has to get up and start the long process of getting her hair and makeup just right. She checks her reflection and feels pretty satisfied with how she turned out today. She turns to Taiyu and asks if she looks pretty, and the guy is basically stunned into silence. Fuyuki is just happy she managed to wake up early enough to put in the extra effort. She heads into work looking like a total pro, while Taiyu is still dragging a bit. Some guy at the office compliments her perfume, but she's just thinking about how it was meant only for her husband. Later on, Taiyu gets himself into a mess when some schoolgirls accuse him of taking creep shots of them. They're yelling at him in public, calling him a gross voyeur while he tries to explain himself. Fuyuki suddenly appears and grabs his arm, asking the girls what they think they're doing with her husband. The girls are completely shocked that a gorgeous woman like her is actually married to him. Once they're alone, Taiyu thanks her for the save, and she admits she's still got her old school uniform in the closet. She decides to put it on for him back at the apartment, looking like a total dream. She tells him she just couldn't stand the thought of losing to some random high school girls. Fuyuki pulls Taiyu close, fully embracing her schoolgirl role for the night. She's determined to prove she's still got that youthful charm he likes. She sits back and teases him, offering to let him take whatever photos he wants. Taiyu is too flustered for that and shuts it down, much to her disappointment. Fast forward to a day out, and Fuyuki is turning heads everywhere they go. Some random guys can't help but comment on her looks, and they aren't being quiet about it. While Fuyuki is busy checking her phone for a message, those same guys decide to move in and invite her for some tea. Taiyu finally catches up, apologizing for being late. He's just a normal-looking guy in simple clothes, which is quite the contrast to Fuyuki's flashy look. The guys start laughing the moment they see him. They can't believe a girl like Fuyuki would ever date someone so ordinary. Fuyuki isn't having any of it. She starts defending Taiyu, praising his clean-cut style while clenching her fist in annoyance. She gets right in their faces, telling them that having a head full of trendy clothes but zero brains is what's actually lame. One of the guys loses his cool and grabs Fuyuki's head, but Taiyu isn't about to let that slide. He steps in immediately with a stern look. With a quick and professional move, Taiyu twists the guy's hand back, forcing him to back off. He makes it clear that he's her husband, leaving the bullies stunned. They walk away together, with Fuyuki clinging to his arm. Taiyu's just glad the self-defense classes he took finally paid off when it mattered most. They head to the train station for their date. Fuyuki mentioned it would be nice to get out of the house and experience a train date, for once. The train is absolutely packed because of an event in the next town, leaving very little personal space for the commuters. Fuyuki doesn't mind at all. She loves being able to stay this close to Taiyu in public without anyone thinking it's weird. As the train sways, Fuyuki starts feeling a bit sleepy and rests her head right on Taiyu's shoulder. She looks up at him with a grateful smile, knowing he worked a ton of overtime just to make sure they could have this day together. She starts teasing him again, offering her chest as a pillow since he's the one who's actually tired. Taiyu, blushing as usual, quickly declines the offer. They finally reach their destination, the aquarium. Taiyu is so excited that he practically dashes toward the entrance like a kid. Inside, Fuyuki is mesmerized by the fish. She looks like a little kid with her hands pressed against the glass, fascinated by the underwater world. Taiyu can't help but laugh at how cute she's being. Fuyuki pouts, annoyed that he's calling her childlike during their big date. To capture the moment, Fuyuki pulls him in for a quick selfie. They look like any other happy couple enjoying their weekend. But the mood shifts instantly when Taiyu spots a colleague from his department. They're in deep trouble if they get seen together. Taiyu wants to sneak out quietly, but Fuyuki insists on staying. She's not about to let their date be ruined by a little fear. They end up sitting right in the audience for the dolphin show, but luck isn't on their side. The colleague spots them and demands to know what's going on. Fuyuki doesn't miss a beat, claiming they're both team leaders just looking for references for a new project. She plays the work card perfectly. The colleague totally buys it, laughing off the idea that they could ever be dating. Just then, a dolphin leaps up and sends a massive splash right over Fuyuki. She's completely soaked from head to toe. Her top is sticking to her, and she's dripping wet while everyone stares. Taiyu quickly hands her a handkerchief, telling her to cover up since her top has become a bit too revealing from the water. They manage to slip away without any more colleagues spotting them. Taiyu is relieved, while Fuyuki is already back to her energetic self. Fuyuki catches a certain look on Taiyu's face and starts teasing him, asking if he was actually feeling a bit jealous back there. Taiyu tries to play it off, but Fuyuki can see right through him. She finds his jealous side absolutely adorable. Elsewhere, a new girl is standing by a vending machine. This is Hokuhua Kain, a scriptwriter with a distinct gothic look and a habit of smoking candy. Back home, Taiyu is getting ready to head out for some work. Fuyuki rushes after him, telling him he forgot something very important. She appears in the hallway looking incredibly enticing, and asks him for her mandatory goodbye kiss. She leans in close, reminding him that this is the only time of day they get to be affectionate since they have to hide it at the office. Taiyu gives her a sweet kiss on the cheek before heading out. Fuyuki pouts, saying a kiss on the mouth would make it impossible to let him go. After the door slams shut, Fuyuki is left alone, her heart still racing. Meanwhile, Taiyu is walking down the street toward his destination. He happens to pass by Akai, who is drinking and smoking her candy cigarette alone. She's being bothered by a guy who won't take no for an answer. The guy gets aggressive and grabs her arm. Akai is clearly uncomfortable and tells him to let go, but he just keeps pushing her. Taiyu steps in to help, and Akane looks up at him with a puzzled expression. She feels like she's seen his face somewhere at the office. Akane looks at Taiyu as he helps her up. A memory of Fuyuki flashes in his mind, the woman who is always so proud to call him her husband. The harasser runs off, surprised that Akane actually had someone with her. Taiyu walks her away, and Akane thanks him for stepping in before things got worse. Akane looks at Taiyu with a rare, soft expression, thanking him for being the only one who had the courage to step in and help her. She reaches into her bag and pulls out her company ID, revealing that she's a writer from the script team named Hokuhu Akane. Taiyu is completely stunned to realize he's standing in front of the legendary, godly writer, Akane. He quickly introduces himself as Hara Taiyu from the engineering department. Akane mutters to herself about them working in the same place, her sharp eyes fixed on the man who just saved her. Back at the office, Taiyu is suddenly pulled into a secluded corner by Fuyuki, who's been waiting for a moment alone with her, Takuan. Fuyuki gives him a quick, playful kiss on the cheek as revenge for making her wait. She leans in close, her gaze teasing and full of love. From the shadows of the hallway, Akane catches a glimpse of their secret interaction. She finds the dynamic between the design leader and the quiet engineer interesting. Later, Fuyuki heads to the smoking area to clear her head, only to run into a familiar face standing there alone. It's Akane, puffing on one of her signature candy cigarettes. Fuyuki is surprised to see the famous writer hanging out in a place like this. They start reminiscing about when they first met, 2 years ago, when Akane used Fuyuki as the real-life reference for her hit game, Gal Queen Quest. Akane suddenly drops a bombshell, asking Fuyuki if she ever got married. Fuyuki's heart skips a beat as she desperately tries to play it cool and hide her secret. Akane explains her new project is called Office Love Affair, a story centered around a secret romance in the workplace. Fuyuki can't help but feel like the writer is looking right through her. Akane's professional pride is on full display as she challenges anyone to doubt her work. Taiyu, watching from the side, can feel the intense aura she gives off. As they walk through the office, Fuyuki realizes she needs to be extra careful. If a master storyteller like Akane starts digging, their secret marriage won't stay a secret for long. Before parting ways for the day, Fuyuki blows a subtle kiss toward Taiyu, a little secret just for him to carry through the rest of his shift. Fuyuki arrives home first, bursting through the door with her usual high energy. Taiyu is already there, looking a bit worn out but happy to see her. They settle onto the couch together. Fuyuki, still riding the high from their office encounter, suggests they continue where they left off earlier. She gets incredibly clingy, leaning her weight against him and asking point blank if he's ready for the main event of the evening. Fuyuki lets her guard down completely, her heart thumping against her chest as she looks at Taiyu with pure, unfiltered desire. She softly tells him that the kiss has to be on the mouth this time. They share a deep, intimate moment as the rest of the world fades away. Taiyu can't help but tell her how cute she is. Fuyuki, suddenly self-conscious, sniffs him and then decides a bath is the first priority. At the bathroom door, she pauses and looks back over her shoulder, asking Taiyu if he'd like to join her and bathe together. Taiyu is completely caught off guard. Even though they are married, the idea of sharing a bath still makes his head spin and his heart race. He finds himself sitting in the warm water, his nerves on edge because they've almost always bathed separately until now. The door opens, and Fuyuki steps in, looking breathtakingly beautiful and a little bit shy herself as she joins him in the steam. They sit together, the atmosphere thick with tension and steam. Fuyuki breaks the ice by offering to wash Taiyu's hair for him. As she gently scrubs his head, Taiyu relaxes, joking that it feels just like being pampered in a high-end beauty parlor. Fuyuki moves on to scrubbing his back, explaining that her long routine is why she usually prefers to bathe alone, even if it takes her an hour. She then turns the tables and asks why Taiyu isn't offering to wash her front as well. The question sends a massive jolt through his entire body. Taiyu tries to be helpful, but washing someone else, especially his gorgeous wife, proves to be much more difficult and distracting than he expected. He ends up behind her, his heart hammering in his chest as he becomes acutely aware of how close they are and how her soft skin feels against him. Fuyuki leans back into him, completely calm and content. She mentions how much she loves the scent of their shared body soap on his skin. The long day finally catches up to her, and Fuyuki starts dozing off right there in the warm water. Taiyu gently wakes her, worried she'll catch a cold. They share one last, tender kiss in the bath. Fuyuki whispers that he did a great job today, making all his hard work feel worth it. The next day at the office is a different story. Akane is in a heated meeting, slamming her hand down in frustration at a decision she can't accept. The producer wants to cut the final scene of her script just to save a bit of money, but Akane refuses to compromise on the essence of her work. Fuming with anger, Akane storms out of the meeting. Fuyuki calls out to her, but the writer is too deep in her own frustration to listen. Akane walks outside the office building, looking utterly dejected. She pulls out her candy cigarette, sighing as she wonders if anyone actually cares about the story. Lost in her thoughts, Akane almost steps into the path of a zooming car. Taiyu, who happened to be nearby, lunges forward and grabs her just in time. In the chaos of the rescue, Taiyu accidentally ends up with his hand in a very compromising position. He's mortified and starts apologizing as fast as he can. Akane teases him for a second before giving him a sincere thank you. Taiyu realizes that despite her cool exterior, she's actually quite vulnerable right now. She admits she's been doubting her own talent lately. When she accidentally blurts out her deepest fear out loud, she's mortified, while Taiyu can only stare in surprise. Taiyu suddenly breaks his timid exterior and loudly insists that her work is actually incredible. He begins to gush about her talent, praising the way she weaves foreshadowing into her well-crafted stories and how her characters always stand out with their own unique charm. He tells her with absolute sincerity that he's looking forward to seeing the deeper meaning she'll bring to her next balanced story. When he realizes he's been rambling and admits he's a huge fan, Akane suddenly turns her back on him, leaving him panicked that he might have overstepped. Behind her cool facade, Akane is blushing furiously, her heart racing at the unexpected and genuine praise. She can't help but feel incredibly happy hearing how much her work truly means to someone like him. Regaining her composure, Akane looks back at Taiyu with a confident smile, teasingly suggesting that her next masterpiece might just be thanks to him. As she continues to smoke her candy cigarette, Taiyu is struck by how effortlessly cool she is, even as she reminds him that she'd never actually smoke while walking. Akane stops by Taiyu's desk to talk about a new game script. She's being way too friendly, and Fuyuki is in the back watching with daggers in her eyes. That night at the apartment, Fuyuki interrupts Taiyu while he's trying to work. She's shaking with rage, accusing him of being way too close to Akane at the office. Taiyu explains he's just a fan of her work, but Fuyuki still thinks the whole situation is unfair. He promises to make up for it with quality time and pulls her in for a hug. The next morning, Taiyu decides he needs to put some distance between himself and Akane. He turns down her lunch invite with a quick lie about having a bento and makes a run for it. Akane isn't just going to let him slide and chases him right down the hallway. She pins him against the wall, demanding to know why the hell he's avoiding her. Taiyu cracks and blabs that his wife is jealous, which just makes Akane burst out laughing. She doesn't seem to mind and asks him for a quick favor instead. With a smug look, she tells him to come over to her place tonight. Fuyuki catches every word of the conversation and watches her walk away. She's shocked to hear her husband is actually planning to go to another woman's house. The thought that he might be cheating starts to totally overwhelm her. Taiyu arrives at a fancy house and finds himself sitting in front of a massive meal. Akane notices him turning red while his phone starts blowing up with notifications. Turns out Fuyuki is actually outside, losing her mind as she peeks through the window. She bursts through the door and tackles Taiyu, much to Akane's surprise. They end up ducking into a closet so they don't get caught trespassing. Fuyuki hugs him tight, her suspicion turning into pure embarrassment. Fuyuki is a crying mess, but Akane just watches the drama unfold with a blank stare. Akane starts howling with laughter at the ridiculous situation. Fuyuki stands her ground, telling Akane to go find herself a different man. Akane just laughs it off and shows her the wedding ring she's been hiding. Fuyuki is completely floored to realize her rival is actually a married woman too. It turns out Akane's husband is a doctor, and he's just walked through the front door. A few days later, it's Valentine's Day at the office. Fuyuki secretly hands Taiyu a small gift before he heads out for the day. Fuyuki and Akane have become fast friends and are hanging out in Akane's kitchen. Fuyuki admits she's a disaster at cooking but wants to make something Taiyu loves. They find a recipe online and start prepping all the chocolate. Things get a little chaotic in the kitchen as they compare their assets while cooking. Fuyuki manages to spill melted chocolate right down the front of her shirt. Akane tries a sample of the batch before they stick the rest in the fridge to cool. Back at home, Fuyuki is waiting around until Taiyu finally returns at 8. She greets him with a smile, only to realize she left his gift back at Akane's house. Taiyu is exhausted after a long day of dealing with bugs and angry bosses. Fuyuki decides to skip the chocolate and brings him a hot mug instead. He asks if it's cocoa, and she tells him it's a trade-off for the gift she forgot. They settle onto the couch together, ending the night with a warm drink. Fuyuki steps on the scale and immediately regrets her life choices. She realizes her desk job and bad posture are catching up to her, and she decides it's time for a change. Her alarm blares at 5:30 in the morning, and she drags herself out of bed while Taiyu is still dead to the world. She clears some space in the living room, determined to get her fitness journey started right then and there. She kicks things off with some yoga, though she's clearly more focused on the workout than her outfit. The stretches are way more intense than they looked in the videos, and she's starting to feel the burn in all the wrong ways. After nearly breaking herself, she gives up on the yoga and decides to give jogging a shot instead. She hits the pavement, drawing plenty of eyes from the locals as she tries to keep a steady pace. She finishes her run feeling like a champion, unaware of the two guys in the back who think they just saw a goddess. Fuyuki makes it back home and plans on a light salad, but the smell of Taiyu's cooking is already filling the kitchen. Taiyu unveils a stack of fresh pancakes, and Fuyuki's diet plans immediately go up in smoke. He tells her he just wanted to treat her after seeing her work so hard, and she decides some extra calories are worth the love. Elsewhere, Akane is out for a smoke break, and a group of guys won't leave her alone. She's doing her best to ignore them until a man steps up and firmly declares that she's his wife. The guys back off fast once they realize Akane's husband, Masato, is on the scene with some sweets to boot. Masato is as sweet as the treats he bought, but Akane plays it cool and keeps her distance as they head home. Internally, Akane is a blushing mess because she's still head over heels for the man she married. They actually tied the knot after only 3 days of dating, and they've been happily married for 3 months now. During dinner, Masato can't stop complimenting her cooking, which has Akane's heart doing flips. She heads off to the bath, hoping to set the mood for a very romantic evening with her doctor husband. Masato ruins the vibe a bit by getting all medical on her, warning about the dangers of bathing right after a meal. Frustrated, Akane texts Fuyuki for some pointers, and the suggestion of lewd underwear has her nearly dropping her phone. Fuyuki takes the advice herself and tries out the oversized t-shirt look, though she's dying of embarrassment. Taiyu catches on immediately and asks if she's trying to seduce him, sending her heart into overdrive. She tries to backtrack and pull him away, but her shy side is definitely winning the battle. Taiyu leans in with a whisper that keeps her awake all night, and the next day she's too embarrassed to even talk about it. The story shifts back to their high school days, where a young Yuzuki was being bullied for her looks. High school Fuyuki and Akane stepped in to save the day, giving the bully a piece of their mind. Fuyuki made it her mission right then to turn the shy Yuzuki into the cutest girl around. The two Gyaru basically adopted her and took her on a massive makeover shopping spree. Yuzuki didn't think anything would help, but Fuyuki gave her a much-needed pep talk about inner beauty. Akane told her to leave everything to them, and they got to work on her transformation. They brought her to a fancy beauty parlor and introduced her to a professional stylist. Yuzuki was terrified, having only ever had her hair cut by her busy mom at home. The stylist worked her magic, promising to make the young girl look absolutely stunning. The results were incredible, and Yuzuki couldn't believe the cute girl in the mirror was actually her. When she got home, she was still riding the high of her new look and her favorite hairpin. Taiyu gave her his seal of approval, and seeing her brother's reaction made the whole makeover worth it. Back with the high school crew, Akane was busy teaching Fuyuki a few more techniques to use on guys. Fuyuki tried one out on Taiyu, and while he acted tough, his heart was definitely racing. Looking back at those photos, Akane and Fuyuki laugh about how they first bonded over that makeover. The scene shifts back to the school building, where so many of their memories were made. In class, Taiyu is absorbed in his favorite gacha game, oblivious to the whispers of his classmates about his solitary hobby. Fuyuki suddenly leans over, her eyes sparkling with envy at his high-level character and impressive progress in the game. Their conversation is cut short when Fuyuki's friends call her away for a makeup emergency, leaving a flustered Taiyu behind. As Fuyuki walks off, Taiyu can't help but feel that he's just had a once-in-a-lifetime chance to talk to the most popular girl in school. Later at a bookstore, Taiyu spots Fuyuki struggling to reach a book on a high shelf and desperately wants to help her despite their height difference. He manages to help her out, and Fuyuki is surprised to see him there, immediately curious about what kind of book he's looking for. Seeing his interest in game programming, Fuyuki boldly suggests they make a game together, offering to handle all the character art. Taiyu is blown away by the quality of her sketches, and Fuyuki humbly mentions that her mother is actually a professional illustrator. Their collaboration quickly brings them closer, leaving Taiyu's classmates green with envy as the two spend more and more time together. Fuyuki visits Taiyu's room for the first time, and he's a nervous wreck while she compliments him on how tidy and simple his space is. While working on a romantic scene for their game, Taiyu admits he doesn't know how to describe a kiss since he's never actually had one. Fuyuki looks him dead in the eye, her face flushed red as she asks if he wants to try kissing her for the sake of research. The tension in the room is palpable as Taiyu tries to process her offer, his heart hammering against his ribs in the heavy silence. Just as they lean in, Taiyu's mother bursts into the room with snacks, completely oblivious to the intimate moment she's just interrupted. Taiyu is mortified and practically shoves his mom out of the room, while Fuyuki can't stop laughing at the awkward family dynamic. Once they're alone again, Fuyuki apologizes for taking the joke too far, but Taiyu can't help but find her even more charming than before. Taiyu is left wondering if Fuyuki really has as much experience as she lets on, or if she was just as nervous as he was. Days later, a frantic Taiyu rushes through the school hallways, desperate to find Fuyuki and tell her that their game is finally finished. He finds her surrounded by the popular kids, and he immediately feels out of place, wanting to pull her away from the noisy crowd. One of the guys tries to get too close to Fuyuki, and she coldly tells him to keep his hands off her before being shoved into Taiyu's laptop. The laptop hits the floor with a sickening smash, and the guys just laugh it off, blaming Taiyu for bringing it to school in the first place. Taiyu tries to play it cool and says he has a backup, but the heartbreak of seeing their hard work shattered is clear on his face. Fuyuki shuts down the invitation to karaoke, declaring that she'd rather spend time on the game she and Taiyu are making together. The popular guys start making fun of their project, but Taiyu stands his ground, shouting that Fuyuki's drawings are the best and cutest. He follows up with a heartfelt confession of how much he likes her, leaving the entire hallway in a shocked, stunned silence. Fuyuki turns bright red and flees the scene, leaving Taiyu to regret his sudden outburst and fear for the future of their relationship. The rest of the guys are baffled by her extreme reaction, wondering why the usually calm and cool Fuyuki would be so flustered. Taiyu chases after her, eventually catching up and grabbing her hand to stop her from running away any further. They are both out of breath and incredibly embarrassed, but they are finally able to talk face to face away from the prying eyes of their peers. Taiyu tries to apologize for the scene in the hallway, putting himself down as someone not worthy of her affection. Fuyuki snaps at him for his low self-esteem, reminding him that he was the only one who ever truly appreciated her art and her game. She reveals that her mother's fame always made her feel like a shadow, and Taiyo's genuine praise was the first thing that made her feel special. In a moment of pure, raw honesty, Fuyuki screams out that she loves Taiyu too, her confession echoing through the empty corridor. Taiyu is absolutely stunned, his mind racing as he tries to confirm if she means love as a friend or something much deeper. Fuyuki decides to show him exactly what she means, leaning in once more and asking if he'd like to kiss for real this time. She pulls him close, gently tilting his head back as she prepares to give him the experience they missed out on earlier in his room. As the school bell rings, the two share a tender, passionate kiss, completely lost in each other and ignoring the world around them. It's a moment that seals their fate, a high school romance that would eventually lead them to the life they share now. Present-day Fuyuki and Taiyu share a sweet, lingering kiss as they remember those days, grateful for the journey that brought them here. Fuyuki looks at her husband with so much love, wishing they could stay together like this forever and ever. Her romantic mood is suddenly broken when she notices Taiyu looks a bit off and feels his forehead, only to find him burning up. She quickly checks a thermometer and panics as it beeps with a high fever, immediately shifting into caretaker mode for her beloved Takuan. Despite his high fever, Taiyu stubbornly insists he can still go to work, but Fuyuki shuts him down, calling him a corporate slave. Fuyuki pulls down her mask, her face flushed with worry as she refuses to let him push himself any further in his condition. Before she leaves for work, Fuyuki pulls Taiyu into a tight, warm hug, promising to give him some of her energy to help him recover. Taiyu eventually wakes up mid-afternoon, feeling dazed and weak as he realizes it's time to take his next dose of medicine. In the kitchen, Taiyu's vision blurs as he tries to message Fuyuki for help, but his strength fails him and his phone clatters to the floor. Taiyu collapses in the hallway, the world spinning around him just as the sound of a key turning in the front door echoes through the apartment. A woman with long dark hair enters the room and looks down at the unconscious Taiyu, her expression a mix of concern and strange satisfaction. She scoffs at the idea of Fuyuki leaving him alone, believing that a gloomy girl like herself is the only one who can truly take care of him. The woman is revealed to be Satsuki, Taiyu's older sister, who hasn't seen him in quite some time and clearly has a deep fixation on him. Satsuki lifts her brother's head, whispering soothingly that she'll take care of everything and that he doesn't need to worry about anything else. She pulls him into a possessive embrace, relishing the fact that her Takuan is back in her arms as he deliriously cries out for her. Satsuki watches him sleep with an intense, lingering gaze, her hand gently stroking his hair while he remains trapped in a feverish sleep. Taiyu wakes up in a panic, realizing he's not at his apartment but in his childhood bedroom, with Satsuki looming over him. He remembers the time he moved out to marry Fuyuki. Satsuki had been so distraught that she insisted on taking over his old room to keep his scent near her. Satsuki claims she came to get him because of a message he sent, and Taiyu realizes with horror that he must have messaged her by mistake. She tells him that she's already informed his workplace about his absence, leaving Taiyu with no choice but to stay under her watchful eye. When Taiyu tries to go to the bathroom, Satsuki insists on accompanying him, much to his confusion and growing discomfort. Too weak to put up a fight, he lets her lead him down the hallway, while she smiles with a disturbing sense of triumph. Satsuki reluctantly stays outside the bathroom door, noticing that she and her brother happen to have the exact same model of smartphone. A dark smile crosses her face as she begins typing on a phone, claiming that everything she does is out of her deep love for her brother. Taiyu emerges from the bathroom to find his sister acting suspiciously, but his fever makes it hard for him to process what's happening. At the office, Fuyuki is working with incredible speed, determined to finish all her tasks so she can rush back to her sick husband. She's overwhelmed with worry for Taiyu, knowing how much he tends to downplay his own pain and fearing he'll push himself too far. Her heart stops as she receives a message from Taiyu's phone, a cold, heartless demand for a divorce that shatters her entire world.